Planning Panel. My name is Ross Bonthorn and I'll be chairing today's meeting. Let me start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today and by paying my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. May I also welcome my fellow panel members and ask them to give a brief introduction of themselves. So Oliver, very briefly, if you could do an introduction, and followed by Heather and Frank.
Yeah, hi, Oliver Klein, planning expert on the panel of about 30 odd years planning experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather?
I'm a town planner and I'm on a number of other planning panels as experts and alternate chair, and I've had over 30 years experience as a planner.
And Frank?
Good afternoon. I'm Frank Bush. I'm a community member of the panel. My background is in law and finance.
Thank you. And as I indicated, my name is Ross Bonthorn. I'm an architect and urban planner. I've had extensive involvement in local government with the City Council and Pittwater Council, and during that time was employed by Lendlease as the principal architect and a board member. I'd also like to acknowledge the council staff members that make these meetings possible and welcome members of the public who are listening in today. Let me to start provide a very brief overview and introduction of the role of the panel and these local planning meetings. From 2018, the state government made local planning panels mandatory for all Sydney councils and Wollongong City Council. In summary, the panels aim to provide an increased level of accountability and transparency that achieves better planning outcomes, particularly for developments that are controversial or sensitive or involve a potential or real conflict of interest for the council. The role of the panel is to provide an independent and open forum for the community to hear and make submissions on development proposals, to consider and determine development applications, modifications and reviews referred to the panel under the direction of the Minister for Planning, and provide recommendations to Council on planning proposals and any other development matters that may be referred to the panel. It's important to note that the panel does not determine policy, but works within the framework and policy set by the Council, the state government and the courts. The local planning panel meetings include 4 members, a chairperson, a community member, and 2 independent experts who we've introduced ourselves to you. The panel is bound by a code of conduct, and members must sign a declaration disclosing any conflict of interest in relation to any matter on the agenda of the meetings. The meeting format includes an on-site inspection of the project, a public panel meeting, which is what we're undertaking at the moment, to hear and make submissions from the community and from the applicants, and a closed panel session for the panel to deliberate and determine the outcome of the proposal. And finally, a public announcement of the determination by the panel.
I'm so sorry. I'm just going to jump in quickly, Ross. I'm so sorry. Can everyone please mute themselves while they're not speaking? There's someone just putting in some background noise. I think it's coming from Daniel Barber. If you could just please mute yourself. Thank you.
The public meeting also provides an opportunity for oral submissions to be made. It is not a forum for debate or discussion between the applicant, members of the public or objectors. Registered speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the panel and may be given a further 1 minute to sum up. Following the submissions, the panel may ask questions and seek further clarification from any of the speakers. The public meetings are video and audio recorded and will be available after the meeting. At the end of the public meeting, the panel will retire into a closed session to deliberate and reach a decision, which will be published on Council's website within 24 to 48 hours. I would now like to formally commence today's Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel meeting and move to the agenda. The first item are apologies and declarations of interest. I have no apologies, and the declarations of interest, I believe if the panel members could just confirm they have no conflict of interest.
I have a conflict of interest, which is a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest related to item 4.3, I think it is.
Yes.
Relating to a former casual social relationship with Jeremy Swan, who was the planner who made a submission on behalf of the owners of number 13 Pitt Road. But that relationship's now well over a decade since we've last seen each other, so I would say that's non-significant.
Oliver, thank you. I also took advice on this and agree that you have no serious conflict of interest at all. And thank you for making that declaration. The other members, I assume from the forms I have not got a conflict of interest, and I indicate I do not have any conflict of interest.
I have no conflicts, Ross.
I have no conflicts either. Thank you.
Thank you. So that can be noted. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes of the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel meeting held on the 5th of March. The panel notes the minutes of that meeting were adopted by the chairperson and have been posted on Council's website. So if we can then move into the items, there are 3 items in this public meeting. The first is 4.1, which is 80 Undercliff Road Freshwater, use of the premises as a restaurant, including ancillary use as a function centre. I have a great number of people who wish to speak on this matter, but before we do that, I call on the staff and through you, Peter, to possibly give a brief summary of some of the more updated information that has been circulated today.
Hi Ross, it's Max Duncan from Council.
Thank
I'll just
you,
be
Max.
presenting that memo. So
Thank
yeah, we've
you.
just, since the report went out last week, we've received a submission against, additional submission against the proposal in relation to some conditions, and a updated information from the applicant as well, wanting to propose some changes to condition in relation to hours of operation and the access from Undercliff Road. This additional memo has addressed each of those concerns raised by both the objection and the applicant, and the changes that we're proposing as a result of that is in relation to the hours of operation proposed to stay the same, but we've added an additional condition in terms of accessibility solution. A minor change to proposed condition number 24, noise management, in relation to amplified music not being played outside, and condition 28, which limits commercial waste collection on Sunday, limiting that to not before 9 a.m. So that's the extent of the changes to the conditions proposed via the supplementary memo.
Would you like to expand on any of those briefly?
Yes, so I can just go into...
And sorry, just for clarification, the reason I think that many of the submissions that we have received relate to these items, and perhaps it would help if there is a very clear, transparent explanation of some of it, particularly relating to the hours, to the pathway, to access from Undercliff Street, things which no doubt the residents and the applicant is very concerned about.
Yeah, so we obviously had concern raised in by both the objection and the applicant's request for the change of the conditions in related to Undercliff Road access. In our assessment report, we've noted that we don't want access via Undercliff Road, given its proximity to the R2 residential zone, and insufficient information in relation to an actual pathway being proposed on the road reserve. So that's that's why we haven't changed our recommendation, because we want to see an accessible solution being provided via the northern side of the site, and not via Undercliff, given the northern side of the site is in close proximity to car parking spaces for disabled access. In relation
Sorry,
to...
just interrupting. So that's covered in condition 10, correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's
Yep,
correct.
thank you.
So we've provided an additional condition to say, look, in terms of an accessibility solution, needs to be provided to council prior to the issue of a construction certificate, which provides an accessible access via the northern side of the site. The other concern that was raised by the applicant was the hours of operation. We've conditioned hours of operation until 10 p.m. Sunday to Thursday, and then 12 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. We have not made any changes to the hours of operation condition that was originally proposed in the council's assessment report.
And the waste collection hours?
Waste collection hours was a request from the objector to be not before 9 a.m. on a Sunday. We think that's reasonable on a Sunday to limit that to not before 9 a.m. So anything after 9 a.m. we can accept, but we agree with the objector that, look, it's fair enough that nothing before 9 a.m. on a Sunday.
And the numbers that are now recommended?
There's
Number of patrons?
So the application proposed 130. We're supportive of 130. The supplementary memo does not change the number of that was proposed for 130 for the operation of the restaurant.
And the single bookings?
Single bookings at 100 is limited to 100 for the single bookings.
And there's a condition which basically says no approval as a function centre? That's
correct. As detailed within the assessment report, the single bookings are in operations with the restaurant itself. It is not a separate approval for a secondary use as a function centre, because it's prohibited use, where we've as noted in our report, it's an ancillary use and limited to 20 single bookings throughout a calendar year.
Thank you. I hope that's been helpful. It definitely has helped, I think, the panel understand further some of the detailed considerations. On that basis, I have a list with a great number of people who wish to speak. I wonder if, in fact, having heard some of that information, it may mean that not all of the speakers wish to address the panel, but if they do, then that's the reason we have these meetings. So the first on the list is Sean Moran, or Moran, on behalf of Michael Regan.
Thanks very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Moran. I'm the Senior Electorate Officer at Michael Regan's Electorate Office here in Wakehurst. Michael wanted to contribute, but is unfortunately currently in question time. So he's asked me to read a statement on his behalf. So thank you very much for accommodating that. Okay, so on behalf of Michael Regan, good afternoon, everybody. I'm here today to speak to some common sense. We need our laws to genuinely support local businesses rather than strangle them in red tape. And that is why we have a proactive minister in John Graham, with the support of the government and even the opposition, to rebuild the 24-hour economy, the nighttime economy, tourism, etc., and deal with the various obstacles that have crept into neighbourhoods over the past few decades, especially around noise. Pilo has been a successful business for over 20 years, and I support their DA. 20 years for any restaurant is rare, even more so when you consider it is a fine dining restaurant, and it's not hard to see why. The owners love and care for their staff, their community where they live and have raised a family, and of course, their customers. Pilu is defined by husband and wife dynamic duo Giovanni and Marilyn, who give back to their community in so many ways, including various charities. I was mayor for 15 years, and in all that time, there was not a single noise complaint about Pilu or its business. Yet I received at least one complaint every year about the local surf club in front of them, simply for using microphones during an Australia Day surf carnival. Let's not forget that nature itself is loud. The ocean is crashing 24/7 and can be heard streets back. Now, recent noise law changes were made to stop people moving into a vibrant area and complaining about existing noise. A great example of why this reform was needed is the high-profile case of Joey's Restaurant in Palm Beach, which was a case that saw the Northern Beaches Council dragged into a long, costly and unnecessary dispute. Now, let's be clear, these complaints can come with real costs. My own conservative estimates would suggest that tens of thousands of dollars will be spent on unnecessary acoustic reports, town planners, application fees and revised plans. And for what? There's no compensation for these businesses, just red tape and financial strain for a hardworking business in a cost of living crisis. And this needs to stop. I'm proud to be part of the solutions on winding back these measures at a state level. Pilu has followed every rule, yet still faces outdated restrictions. Further restrictions on Pilu go against what the state government is trying to achieve. So I asked the panel, are they truly necessary? How many objectors to noise were there and how many of those were neighbours? It's difficult that we're here and have to go this far. If the planning panel or council has any suggestions on what other laws are needed, need amending to prevent this from happening again, then please let's have a chat. I really welcome those discussions and I'll take those concerns directly to the Planning Minister and the Minister for the Nighttime Economy. Now, Pilu is well-known and well-loved business that deserves to thrive, and I want to see our local economy supported. The decision risks making an incredible local business no longer viable. They need to be able to run as they've been able to do so for 21 years. Common sense needs to prevail. Thank you very much for your time.
Sean, thank you. Does the panel have any questions for Sean? No, then we'll move on. The next speaker is Daniel Barber on behalf of 71 Undercliff Road. Daniel, are you available?
Yes, Ross, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Great.
3 minutes and a bell
I'll be
and a minute. And thank you for your submission.
Thanks. I'll be relatively, no problem. I'll be relatively brief. I think a lot of the amendments that were made actually satisfied the concerns raised in the submission. I'll just mention the ones that are outstanding, but generally a lot of those have been addressed. The main thing is I'm speaking on behalf of a kind of an objective group. So namely a gentleman called Tom Oates that lives immediately behind Pilu, and then also another neighbour that are both adjoining the property. The number of, as I mentioned, number of amendments made have satisfied some of those concerns in terms of the amount of the days of the events occurring and the time. So we're very supportive of those changes. That was the primary concern. One minor concern is that with the limiting of the amount of weddings per calendar year or events, just want to make sure this first year it's prorated, because that would effectively increase the amount of events this calendar year. So just for this year, it should be prorated, and then subsequent years can be that amount. I think that's a pretty reasonable request, I think, in the amount per year that's proposed. One of the things we're concerned about was, both living right next door in residential dwellings right next to this business, or concerned that the acoustic report had assumed double brick when in fact it's a weatherboard building. So one of the concerns they had that that the assumptions that were made in that acoustic report potentially may not be accurate because they haven't considered the correct material. So that's something that maybe is a condition of the consent that that acoustic report be updated to consider that, and because that would have impacts in terms of the vibrations and noise that comes from that venue as a result of the building's material. All the conditions recommended about the PA system and amplified DJ system, everything like that is highly supported. One of the concerns raised by both is the wedding pavilion out the back. So their advised me understanding is that building is currently unlawful, and they haven't brought this up as an issue previously, but I guess their concern is by allowing the intensity of use to that structure, which I believe doesn't have consent and would otherwise need a BIC, that I guess they're somewhat approving the use for that space. So their view is that whilst they want the use contained within the existing building rather than extending to the pavilion that's been built out the back of the site. And then just adding to that, they're concerned also that there's been disabled access proposed to the site, which it is required, but I think they thought that a better location could be included, that rather than accessing it through the public reserve, potentially proposing it where the pavilion is, or somewhere more suitable that's accessed through the public road rather than through the public reserve. I think they're the main concerns raised, and as mentioned, a lot of it else has been addressed.
Thank you. You've done well with the bell and the 3 minutes. Any questions from the panel members to Daniel?
No.
No. Thank you.
No. Daniel, thank you very much. The next listing I have is from Julia Shear from 70 Undercliff Road, and maybe, Julie, you've already been spoken for, or you would like to still add if you are present. Julie, are you with us?
I don't think she's online. I can't see her name in the meeting. So if we just move on and we can come back to her at the end.
Fine. The next one, number 4, Denise Goldstein.
Yes, thank you.
Denise, thank you. Just if you perhaps can enlighten us further or add to what Daniel has already explained on behalf of a number of the residents.
Okay, I am not a former resident. We've recently moved. I lived in the area for over 30 years. I was a founder and chair of Friends of Freshwater, and also a director on the Freshwater Community Bank, Bendigo. We've been in the area long enough to know the usage prior to PILU, and nothing has actually changed. I put in a submission on my own, and I also put in a submission on behalf of Friends of Freshwater. This really was just to formalize the usage of the venue. There was never an issue on noise that I was aware of, and we were getting reflective noise across the parkland. So we get it from the pub and from the diggers and whatever. We've never had an issue with PILU. This was simply a try to hobble the business, in my opinion. PILU has always been community supportive. They've supported the bank. They've supported the bank's initiatives, which have included the young adult hostel in Manly. And they have supported many, many charitable events. I see no reason for this to have impacted anybody negatively, as it has always been used as it is used.
Thank you, Denise. And do the panel members have any questions of Denise? Thank you for coming to the meeting today, Denise.
Thank you, Ross.
No questions?
Thank you.
Not from me.
Number 5, the next is Ramsey Taylor, 9, is it Talgara Place?
Yeah, that's correct.
Ramsey, hi. Would you like to talk to the panel? And as I've indicated, we've had hopefully some further information which may help you understand the recommendation that's now before us.
Sure. So I am in support of the application and just wanted to provide some context for the panel. So in 2020 and 2021, people at Freshwater, along with almost every business in Australia, experienced difficult challenges to simply stay open. When people at Freshwater reopened, like other businesses, there was a surge in demand, particularly for special events that had been missed or postponed. Having a thriving business was a huge relief after the tolls of the COVID-19 shutdowns, and the hope was to recover, or at least come close to reaching a break-even point after the staggering losses of the previous 2 years. But instead of enjoying that surge in demand, people at Freshwater received a complaint that the celebratory events were disruptive, the wedding ceremonies producing offensive noise. When this feedback was received, as with all issues brought to the attention of people at Freshwater, action was taken. Volume limits were reduced, stringent policies put in place, celebrants and musicians heavily managed, sound tests regularly conducted throughout events, additional signage put up regarding noise, and a security guard employed for every event. Regardless of these improvements, an outdated consent was simply dug out, dusted off, and used as a tool to diminish and bully a modern business. Hoping to ensure compliance in all operations, Pilo Freshwater submitted a DA to modernize the regulatory framework imposed on the business. The DA simply asked to formalize the business operation that had been performed since taking over premises in 2004, which were the same operations, including
If you could sum up now, please, in a minute.
Sure. Essentially, Pilu has been under enormous stress, and it's been really disappointing to watch the owners who have acted in good faith just be met with more pressure and demands, and staff under extreme scrutiny with many unwarranted complaints. Long story short, we provide jobs, contribute to local economy, support charities, local businesses, Australian producers, apprenticeships, high school work placements. I could continue. The fervent wish of a few to reduce or restrict operational tactics restaurants employ to remain viable in an increasingly low margin industry is myopic, unrealistic, and egocentric. I believe they should receive approval and could be commended for surviving the financially oppressive, long-winded journey this has been.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the panel? No. Okay. The next name I have is Jenny Nathan. Jenny, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. And I've also got Julie Shear here with me too, who's just run across the road. She had some internet difficulties. You called on her
Right.
before. So
Fine.
we
Jenny,
will just...
you've heard some of the previous submissions,
Yep.
and so I'd ask if you can to raise issues that you think maybe have not been addressed so far adequately.
Sure, I'll be very quick, and then Julie can have a quick turn too. But we've been here for just over 2 years. We're at number 63, just under 2 years actually.
Yeah.
And we have had absolutely no issues. We've moved here knowing that Pilu was across the road. And we actually, I'm surprised to say that we just never hear anything from anything that's going on in the restaurant. And the Pilus are very community minded people, and they do everything possible to keep that noise down. And in relation to their neighbours, they're very community minded people, as was said before by Sean. And we just feel that it's an institution here at Freshwater, and we seriously live across the road from it and have no issues whatsoever with the restaurant. And so I have absolutely no objections to anything that is being put forward. So that's me, and here's Julie.
Hello,
Julie.
I'm Julie. And
Hi, Julie.
Hello. I have been living directly behind Pilu for 15 years. I actually love being near that lovely house where their restaurant is. Marilyn and Giovanni are very approachable people. They, exactly what Jenny said, they're very community minded. We love it being in our neighbourhood, and I don't have an issue at all with any excessive noise. I really support that DA to go through. Thank you.
Julie, thank you very much, and thank you for rushing back to our meeting.
Thank you.
And the final one that I have as listed is Glenda Dunn. Glenda, are you with us from 1/69 Undercliff Road?
Yes, I'm here. Am I?
Welcome.
Yes. We've lived directly behind Pilu in number 69 Undercliff Road for 15.5 years. We have never had any noise concerns or any other issues. I actually to save time, I fully support the statements of Michael Regan, Denise Goldstone and Ramsey Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also have some listings from the applicant. I'm not sure who may be present representing the applicant, if they'd like to address the panel. Marilyn or Giovanni or Matthew?
I'm here, Chair. My name's Giovanni Cirillo.
Yep.
You go first. Good afternoon, everyone. You go first, Giovanni.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Marilyn. My name is Giovanni Cirillo. I'm a town planner. I represent Marilyn and Giovanni Pilu. I also was responsible for the preparation of the DA, the Statement of Environmental Effects, the Plan of Management, and I've been working with Council for about the last 2 years to ensure that the application that we lodged had addressed all of their concerns and all of the concerns that had been raised by a couple of objectors in vicinity of the restaurant. For the most part, we agree with the officer's report. A few things have arisen since the report has been tabled, however, which are actually a significant cause for concern. In particular, I'll go through them in due course. I think there's about 5 of them. There are certain matters I raised in my final submission that I made in the last couple of days that members will have. particularly in relation to conditions 27, 10 and 23. Condition 27 relates to the trading hours. The restaurant has traded since 1980 until 11 p.m. And midnight on the weekends with consent. And I believe I've attached an excerpt out of the 1980 consent that quite clearly states the trading hours. Now, the proposal before you seeks to further limit the trading hours of the venue to 10 p.m. From Monday to Thursday. This application was purely, if you like, an umbrella consent that sought to bring together some of the operational conditions that have existed over the last 45 years under one contemporary consent, and to deal with some issues that occurred prior to Marilyn and Giovanni operating at the site some 20 years ago. In particular, there was a gazebo structure built before they arrived, and also the garden room was enclosed. So we sought really to try and deal with that, and also infrequent private events, as has been documented in this report. What we did not anticipate, however, was that, and certainly this was not raised during the assessment, that the trading between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. was somehow objectionable. As you've heard from a number of neighbours, this venue is a very quiet, fine dining restaurant. It does not cause nuisance to its neighbours, despite what others may say, for various reasons. The acoustic report that has been provided to you quite clearly demonstrates that 11 p.m. trading, we proposed midnight initially, but 11 p.m. could equally work, and we would accept a condition limiting trading until 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday, midnight trading Friday and Saturday, and 10 p.m. on Sunday night, as has always been the case. So I put it to you that 11 p.m. is entirely acceptable from an environmental impact perspective, and in fact has been the operating condition of the restaurant for 45 years and should be retained. Secondly, conditions 10 and 20.
Yeah, Giovanni, a minute, and if you could stay within the time, please.
Thank you. Conditions 10 and 23, as I propose them to be amended, are quite critical for disability access. The alternate condition being recommended now at no notice by staff dealing with accessibility can't be achieved. In fact, it'll make accessibility worse. This heritage listed structure has stairs with a kink in it that is the main entry to the building. By retaining the side access as we propose it in conditions 10 and 23, it's the high part of the site. The proposed amendment that seeks to bring people in from the northeastern, I think, corner, the main existing entry, would require the levelling of the gardens, the gutting of the house, and effectively it's quite significant heritage impacts on the building. The existing arrangements for disability access is from the side gate, and it could be retained. And quite contrary to the quite, well, unacceptable comment that somehow this causes a privacy impact, it's either bad typing or something else, but it clearly presents no privacy issue to have possibly a person.
Yeah, just very briefly, if you could just finish, Giovanni, because there are other speakers from the applicant.
Yeah, Marilyn will speak concerning the limitation to no amplified music outside. We've proven quite clearly that there will be a need, subject to the acoustic conditions in the consent, to have some amplified music outside. Now, whether it's amplified or unamplified is immaterial. The acoustic level is more important, because applying this condition will effectively prevent brides from even having, a little speaker when they go to get married. Really, this was never proposed, and it's not acceptable in any way, shape or form. It's the acoustic level that's important, not whether it's amplified or not. And finally, the condition dealing with waste collection. If anyone has been to Freshwater at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, you would realise how dangerous that is, considering the volume of traffic that attends the beach. This is not a safe time to be collecting waste, and I would ask that you leave this condition alone. And I thank you for your time and allowing for the extension of time, Ross. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hear from the other speakers and then ask the panel if they have general questions. So, Marilyn, are you present, or Matthew?
Yeah, I'm here.
Marilyn, hi. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me today. So I'm Giovanni and I, here on the screen are the owners of Pillar Freshwater. Sorry, it's really emotional.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so basically the DA is simple. We're not expanding, we're not renovating, we're not changing, and we're not altering our operation. All we're doing is seeking approval to continue operating as we always have for 20 years. In fact, the previous operator did the same for 20 years before us. In fact, they almost ran it as a function centre. So it's not a new use, it's just something that has never been an issue until recently. So at our core, we're a fine dining restaurant. We are the only two-hatted family-run restaurant in the region. We have done for 20 years. Small weddings, though, and events are secondary, but they're absolutely necessary for what to make our business model viable. And nothing happened, as Ramsey stated, until COVID, and then we had an issue with the noise complaint regarding the increase in the weddings because people weren't allowed to get married for 2 years. So, yeah, obviously there was an increase in requests. That has now completely subsided. We don't have that demand anymore. So as we tried to recover, like many other businesses, we adapted. However, unfortunately, one neighbour took issue with the ceremonies in the garden. Despite our immediate efforts to reduce the sound levels, reposition the speakers, and comply with the concerns, it wasn't enough. What followed wasn't a conversation, it became a targeted campaign against us. One of the complainants, represented by Daniel Barber, had never raised concerns or lodged a noise complaint in the 20 years that we've been operating until this DA was submitted. To this day, they have never approached us directly, never expressed any concerns to us, and have ignored any attempt at mediation. So for the past 2 years, this has been personally, financially, and emotionally draining for myself, Giovanni, our staff, and our families. We've attempted to mediate only to be met with silence and a refusal. Essentially, if this DA is not approved and we are unable to continue operating as we have for 20 years, this business is no longer viable and we will close. 70 people will lose their jobs. The list goes on. I know I'm getting emotional, so I'll point to the facts. As Giovanni pointed out, the garbage collection on a Sunday already is limiting at 7 a.m. It's out of our control, but we have managed to negotiate with a contractor that they don't collect before 7 a.m. On a Sunday, though, as you're familiar with Freshwater, it's extremely busy. That driveway that they need to reverse up is covered with people going to the beach. It's too dangerous, and it's unreasonable to think that the rubbish has to sit there until 9 a.m. Unreasonable. The finish time of 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday has never been an issue. We're not a nightclub. We're not a pub. We don't have thousands of people leaving the restaurant at that time. If a guest is booked for 8:30 for a degustation meal, they can't leave by 10 o'clock. It's impossible. And when they do leave, it's 2 people, 4 people leaving from the exit close to Moore Road. Julie Shee will attest to it. She lives right there. They don't hear a thing. It's not noisy. So I really strongly request that this stays at 11 p.m. as it always has. Finally, that was it in terms of those objections. We've spoken about noise, we've spoken about garbage collection, and sorry I went over time, and sorry I got emotional.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
And your colleague is Matthew wishing to still address the panel?
Good afternoon, Chair.
Yeah, Matthew, 3 minutes plus if you need another minute or so, please.
Sure. Just for everyone's knowledge, so I'm the applicant's acoustic specialist. I was the consultant who prepared the acoustic report. As part of this assessment, we've done a detailed site survey. We've determined existing noise levels without the operation of the facility. So it's a true representation of the existing acoustic environment. We've undertaken a detailed assessment of the proposed operations as we've outlined in the application. We've been able to show complete compliance with no questions asked about the amplified music, with patrons inside the venues, windows open, windows closed, background music, and as I said, conforming with the plan of management and the recommendations of the acoustic report. two quick things I would like to address is, yes, I understand that in my report there was a typographical error in relation to the double brick. In the time since that was raised and now, I've done a review of our model and can confirm that the inclusion of a lightweight wall as opposed to a double brick wall does not have any acoustic change to the impacts. It is driven based on glazing. Glazing isn't as effective as walls, so there's no concern in relation to that item. The second item I'd like to address is just the amendment to condition 24. It's proposed within the last 24 or so hours that a new condition within that no amplified music is undertaken outside. We've been able to show full compliance in the event amplified music was done outside. We've given parameters of compliance that can be verified by the operators. I've worked with Marilyn and Giovanni subsequently in the last 2 years to show them how they can undertake and verify this prior to any ceremony. I'm confident through the acoustic assessment as well as the plan of management that we can have amplified music outside as long as it's controlled as per the condition of consent. So I'd like to just make it, those are the two additional comments I'd like to add, Chair.
Thank you, Matthew. Panel, do you have any questions of Marilyn or Matthew or Giovanni?
Could I ask a question of Matthew regarding the noise condition? So the condition as it appears in the consent now, where do I see what controls or limitations or what your recommendations regards to the amplified music outside?
Yep, so condition 24, first bullet point reads any amplified music, that is an extract of my report. That was the recommendations of our acoustic assessment. Subsequently, the last sentence of no amplified music outside, that's what I was referring to. That was the new addition in the last 24 hours. That doesn't align with the acoustic report.
So you're saying that your assessment was that amplified music up until 10 p.m.
outside.
And you assumed a certain level that would generate?
Yes, that's
and is this based on, sorry,
You go, sorry.
No, you tell me your levels.
Yep, so it was our assessment assumed that you would have amplified music outside until 10 p.m. and it was to be no greater than 73 decibels when you stand 3 meters from a speaker. So we've given them parameters that they can verify, and that would result in full compliance.
And there was mention in the assessment report that the wrong criteria, noise criteria, was used on page 15 of the report.
That was raised by I believe one of the residents' submissions. They did a peer review. However, we provided council with a very detailed response that we were requested to review that peer review. We conducted a very detailed review and revised assessment that showed that we actually had not used the wrong criteria. The criteria that we had formulated was correct. So that was a previous report that was put through by, I believe, one of the neighbouring residents in response to our report, but we were able to show council that we actually had complied with that, and I do believe that was verified by council officers previously.
And thank you. And in reference to the amplified music, it says assumed to be vocal and acoustic, but isn't acoustic without amplification?
Well, I think we're referring to acoustic instruments, not acoustic as in without. So we've assumed that you could have vocal, acoustic, or that type of music being amplified, because all of this could be amplified. So that's not referred to, I believe, as acoustic in terms of not amplification, the acoustic instruments or the like from amplified music.
And that includes like a DJ as well?
So all of that, all of the above, vocal, acoustic. So if you could plug in an acoustic guitar as an example, that would still be amplified whilst it is an acoustic element.
Right, and this is for the operation of the restaurant as well as when it's in the function mode,
ancillary.
as it were?
Correct, that is right.
Okay. Thank you. I've got
Heather,
other questions. I've got another question for Giovanni, but I'll happy for anyone else to ask questions.
No, continue, Heather. It's
continue. Okay. So
yep.
Giovanni, you mentioned that there's no change in the restaurant, or perhaps Marilyn mentioned it, but my understanding in terms of how it's been operating for the last X number of years, but my understanding is that the actual, and it's referenced in council's report, the actual number of patrons for which consent will be sought is increased, and that I'll clarify with the staff, but that's my understanding of what has also driven the restricted hours. So is that, you're saying that's not the case? The number of people aren't being increased in the restaurant?
There were, I think in the 80s, there was a limitation to 80 inside. I think it was ambiguous as to what occurred outside. And one of the reasons why we applied, Heather, was simply to get under one umbrella a headcount that reflects what exactly has occurred for the last 20 years. Notwithstanding the fact that these consents are very dated and don't even reflect current acoustic standards or VCA standards or anything else. But I think it was a mid-80s consent that that limited population indoors to 80. But so, yes, I think it is probably fair to say, Heather, that the numbers are going up in the current consent. But certainly the intention was never to make the hours go down. The intention, at worst, would be to keep them as they are and have been for the last 20 years. We had applied for more. We had applied for midnight. Acoustically, it stood up. It actually complies with all relevant requirements. But if need be, we'll accept 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and if need be, on a trial condition. This is commonplace across New South Wales, and I'm certain that you, in your experience, and me and mine, have dealt with it numerous times in much larger matters. If you wish to put a trial for the operating hours from 10 p.m. onwards, that would also be an acceptable outcome.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question in regards to a statement you made about the disabled access. You said that you want to keep it as it is from the side gate. I mean, I did have a look at the site, but I'm not a Northern Beaches person, and have never been to the restaurant. So where with reference to the plan that we have in the report, say the one on page 42, where is the side gate?
Okay, let me see if I can get it up.
Or just looking at the front of the site from where the parking is.
Okay, so if you look at, say, the assessment report, page 9.
Yep.
You see an air photo at the top of page 9. Now, the main entrance is to the top of the page where the car park is, where you can see some parked cars.
Yep.
And then virtually all patrons will walk across the grass on that diagonal little pathway, and then in the corner where the main entrance is. So that's the north of the site. Now, at the south of the site, at Undercliff Road, you'll see the road kinks.
Yep.
On Undercliff, there's a side gate in the fence there, and it has existed as an ancillary entry or exit. It's not used by patrons normally. It's really a service access more than anything. But, however, it is located at the high point on the site, and it is the only practical way of actually bringing a wheelchair onto the site. Because if you bring wheelchairs in from the low part of the site actually has incredibly dense landscaping, as you may be able to see, and narrow paths, and at least 2 level changes, perhaps 3. Once you actually get into the restaurant, you enter at a sub-basement level. It has a kink in the stairs. You wouldn't even get to the front door, let alone inside. You'd have to actually gut the restaurant and original heritage fabric to get upstairs by you couldn't do a stair climber because there is a kink in the stairs. You would need a lift. That would involve gutting the restaurant, and it's certainly not within Marilyn and Giovanni are tenants. Now, as you know, with disability upgrades, you don't put those sort of obligations on tenants when a tenant is trying to just simply use an existing building. There is no capacity for either people in wheelchairs to even enter. We have proposed that gazebo can be provided with disabled access, but that's as far as you'd be able to go, because you have 2 or 3 further level changes, and you certainly can't get into the restaurant unless you come from Undercliff Road. That's the existing condition. Giovanni's own Pilu, the operator and chef, his own brother is in a wheelchair. That's the only place he can come into the site from. We know from personal experience it's the only place you can come without gutting the restaurant and destroying the gardens.
And does that not involve a level change coming from that upper street?
There is a slight level change on the crossover. So it wouldn't come directly across the crossover, it'd come alongside on the crossover. And that's why I asked that if council was amenable to this, that simply we'd put an application under the Roads Act to simply build that little section of footpath. It's only going to be needed for people in wheelchairs. Staff don't need to use it. other customers don't need to use it. It's only for maybe, you know, say 0.5% of patrons that might come in a wheelchair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Okay.
Thanks, Ross.
Sorry. Thank you. Any other panel members with questions?
Not for me.
Giovanni or Marilyn? No further questions?
Thank you. No.
No. I think it's been a very helpful discussion for the panel, but I think also for the community and for the applicant. And so, as I indicated earlier, we will consider this in the closed meeting that will follow this one and determine and make a recommendation, and that will be published within 24, 48 hours of this meeting. So thank you all very much, and thank you for all of the information that you've given us today. So if that's item 4.1.
Thanks, Ross.
I'll move on to item 4.2. 4.2 is, second, 21 Oaks Avenue DY. It's an application for a development with shop top housing, 7 stories, 2 basements, 3 podium levels, a couple of towers. The recommendation is for refusal, and there are reasons given for the refusal. Do we have anyone with us who would like to address the panel? I don't have any names for people to address this item.
Oh, Mr.
Sorry.
Chair, Greg Boston, consultant planner on behalf of the applicant. As the panel is no doubt aware, I'm registered to address the next item. So while I was here, just out of courtesy more than anything, I thought I'd be available if the panel had any questions. We're aware of the recommendation. It's unfortunate we haven't been able to reach an agreed position with council. However, if you do have any questions, I am here willing and able.
Does the panel have any questions? I guess my only question is, reading through the report, obviously it's a challenge because of the size of the site. Has there been any attempt or discussion to include either or both of the adjoining sites?
Yes, no, look, there's been formal approaches made to both the adjoining property owners. They've been documented in the application. We say there's no reasonable ability to consolidate. The plans before the panel do incorporate a sort of a shared access arrangement through the basement so that the adjoining properties can be developed in the future, sharing the proposed driveway access point. But the fundamentals in relation to the proposal is there's a disconnect between the controls in the DCP that require certain setbacks from the street, the geometry of the site, whereby its depth doesn't provide for a courtyard style sort of building topology, which is required to address ADG solar access and cross ventilation requirements, whilst complying with the quite substantive setback requirements to Oaks Avenue. And as you'd be aware, there's been no uptake on that southern side of Oaks Avenue for new development, presumably because of this issue. So. But look, we're going to continue to work with council, potentially in another forum, but we're reasonably confident that we've got the right people involved to be able to reach an amenable position in the not too distant future.
And what couple of questions. Is there any reason that you chose not to submit a clause 4.6 submission relating to the retail floor space and the height?
Yeah, look, in relation to that, no, there wasn't. There's been a number of iterations of concept plans that have been going back and forth between council and the applicant team. As part of the last iteration that was formally submitted, there was that minor breach that the architect wasn't sort of aware of at the time. And when we lodged that final set, it was on the basis that we thought that there was going to be an opportunity for ongoing discussions. Council obviously formed a view that it was time to determine the application. And at that stage, we'd run out of a deemed refusal appeal right. So So today, in terms of actually achieving a determination, we say is a step forward. And as I said, we're committed to continue to work with council.
Because as you'd be aware, technically the panel has no power to grant consent because of the lack of the submission for a 4.6.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with council's position in relation to that.
Thank you. That's good to have on the record as well. So, panel members, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
So that will go forward to be considered in the closed meeting after this one, with the note that the recommendation is for refusal. The next item is item 4.3. 4.3 is 11 Taylor Street, North Curl, alterations and additions, including a pool to an existing residence. Do we have people who wish to address the panel? I think we have quite a few. Just try and find the list. So I have Hayden Bray and Elise. Either of you available to speak to the panel?
Yes, I am.
Hayden?
Bray. Yep.
Yep. If you'd like to, please, 3 minutes plus a bell and a bit of summing up.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. Council's report has determined that our viewer loss is negligible and moderate. I invite all of you to walk into our lounge room and you'll immediately see that it is in fact a devastating view loss. The applicants already have an unobstructed beach view down to Manly. Now they want to steal our iconic views. I can't understand the turnaround from the previous DA, which was refused by council on the grounds of severe view loss, overdevelopment and non-compliance with council's planning controls. And there's no significant change in this DA. Council had previously assessed the view loss as severe and unacceptable and recommended refusal. In 2022, they also identified the site as being significantly constrained and acknowledged that it may have already achieved its highest and best use. The site is small and not suitable for this development. However, in 2025, despite minimal changes, the council's stance has inexplicably shifted to recommending approval. The council's own assessment in 2022 noted the sensitivity of the site and the importance of maintaining view sharing principles. Yet the 2025 assessment appears to ignore this entirely. The current DA has no significant change, and now council are essentially saying that they can have numerous non-compliance issues because they tried hard, and council are prepared to grant them approval. There's nearly 17% non-compliance of maximum wall height, but that's okay, they tried hard. The rear boundary setback is 75% non-compliant, the front boundary 48%, and their landscaping ratio is 98% non-compliant, but that's okay, they tried hard. They're stealing iconic views from our property when they already have unobstructed views to Manly, but that's okay, they've also tried hard on that. Why do they get preferential treatment when other neighbours with recent DAs have needed to comply with every one of council's planning controls? It makes a mockery of council's entire process and is completely unfair to these neighbours. Our neighbourhood is very angry about this, as it not only undermines the confidence of residents in the planning process, but also opens the door for arbitrary and unpredictable decision making. As you know, North Caulfield Headland is a real estate hotspot. So if you approve this DA, you're creating a very dangerous precedent, which will open up the door for any developer to make a quick buck by wearing council down with repeated non-compliant applications until they get the answer they want. And we'll start to see a 750 square metre block of land developed into 3 houses, each with 3 stories. The refusal of the applicant to provide height poles and a comprehensive view impact assessment should raise red flags. Without them, how can council accurately assess the true extent of the impact? This omission appears to be I've got about 30 seconds to go.
About a minute would be good. Thanks, Hayden.
Thank you. This omission appears to be a deliberate attempt to avoid demonstrating and devastating impact on neighbouring views in an effort to avoid scrutiny. We provided accurate photo montages to council, which shows the view loss impact is devastating. This is not explained, acknowledged, or even set out in the current report. another example of preferential treatment to the applicant. The development does not comply with council's critical planning controls. These non-compliances are not minor. They directly result in significant adverse impacts on the amenity of surrounding properties, which should lead to the refusal of this DA. We ask that the LPP reject this development application immediately.
Thank you very much. And Elise, are you with us?
I am. Thank you,
Good.
Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure whether it's Alice or Elise.
It's Elise Cleese. It rhymes.
Thank you very much. And so if you'd like to talk with the panel, 3 minutes plus a bell and another minute or so to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And we have read your photographs and your work, which you asked us to look at.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And I should note actually that we have received quite a few submissions, and the panel does try to not only inspect the sites, but to read the material that's given to us.
Thank you.
So, Elise, thank you.
So as mentioned, my name is Elise Cleese, and I appear today on behalf of Hayden and Kerry, who are the owners of 13 Pitt Road, who are directly and severely impacted by this proposed development. This is not a situation of minor or even moderate view loss. It is severe and devastating. That was acknowledged in 2022 when a strikingly similar development was recommended for refusal. The key question for the panel today is this: what has changed? Not the design in any meaningful way, not the impact on Hayden and Kerry's views, and certainly not the assessment principles under the tenacity test. And yet somehow the conclusion has changed. The assessment before you today suggests that view sharing has been achieved and key view corridors remain intact, despite clear and contradictory statements acknowledging significant obstructions. Let's be clear, retaining a sliver of Warringah Mall in the distance is not a meaningful view retention. Hayden and Kerry's real view, the irreplaceable land-water interface, is being entirely wiped out by this proposal. Let's look at the assessment report before you. Page 163 of the report before the panel today states that the proposal obscures valuable views and impacts the key land-water interface. And on the next page, it suddenly softens the impact, saying that substantial portions of key view corridors remain intact. These are direct contradictions. You can't have valuable views obstructed while simultaneously claiming that significant view opportunities are retained. The 2022 assessment did not have these inconsistencies and was clear that the impact is unacceptable. And this leads me to 3 serious legal concerns about due diligence and inquiry with this application. The first is that the 2022 refusal was based on an assessment of view loss as severe, and now this fundamental conclusion has been reversed when the impact remains the same. And this can be seen on the first page of the material that's before you. The second point is that, unlike the previous refusal, this report does not substantively engage with the objective evidence from affected residents, including that photograph that I've provided to you, the photo montage on page 1. And that includes view loss assessments that were provided to council, and that one was provided to council. The third point is that the non-compliances still exist, as explained by Hayden. Yet this time they are accepted rather than being recognised as factors that exacerbate the view loss. The lack of proper planning inquiry, the failure to engage with key considerations, and the reversal of an earlier decision on nearly identical facts are all hallmarks of legal unreasonableness, which is why I'm here speaking today. Those hallmarks were considered in cases that I have no doubt the panel is familiar with.
A minute to sum up, Elise, please.
Thank you. So the panel would be familiar with classic decisions like Gilbank and Bloor or Manning and Bathurst Regional Council, where legal unreasonableness was considered in the DA process. And a factual matter in this situation is that we actually have a report that says the exact opposite conclusion as what's in front of you today. That these matters would have to be considered in Class 4 proceedings if the application was approved. However, we're not at that stage yet, and all of the issues that we've raised point to one outcome, which is that this development must be refused. Thank you, panel.
Thank you. Panel members, do you have questions of either Hayden or Elise?
Not from me.
Chair, there's also Tony Bonanno, who is also registered for this. You see him on screen now. He's number 15 Pitt Road.
Sorry, I don't have that listed on my list, but I'm sorry. It's not trying to stop someone, but it's not listed as someone who's sought to speak to the panel.
Yes, I have an invitation and I've spoken to council about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Olivia, can you confirm? I mean, it's not a problem. Just because we can hear from the applicant as well, but I have nothing.
I think you
on
were
the
registered to speak at DDP when this was going to DDP, but now this is the new panel meeting and I didn't get a direct email registering to speak, but that's okay. I think up to you, Ross. I'm sure we have time.
Yeah. I have no problem in just very briefly if you would like to address the panel.
I also urge the panel to reject this proposal. It's simply not justifiable in this instance for the following reasons. As Hayden mentioned,
could you indicate how you have been involved in or why you are making this presentation?
Sorry, I live next door to Hayden Bray.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
We are severely impacted by view losses as well as Hayden. Hayden is probably worse than ourselves, but we are very much affected by view loss to our main living areas. And we've the applicant's home is already a very small parcel of land, and by adding a third story consisting of a bedroom, wardrobe and stairwell will cause devastating impacts on our upper level main living areas and our views. The third story is only 35 square metres, but blocks a lot of valuable and iconic views. The council's, as Hayden said, the council's assessment report labelled this in the 2022 report as severe and unacceptable and recommended refusal. However, despite minimal changes to the proposal, the 2024 report contradicts this conclusion, calling view loss in one part negligible and the other part moderate. View loss of the 2024 assessment is not a professional assessment and does not properly weigh up the benefits and loss. And the refusal by the owner to provide height poles and a comprehensive view impact assessment raises serious concerns. Non-compliance with planning controls, there's a whole heap as Elise and Hayden have mentioned. I won't go into them again, but you can see them on both reports. They highlight these issues. They're not minor. They're not minor. They are directly result in significant adverse impacts to surrounding properties, and many checkboxes are not ticked. Despite minimal changes to the proposal in 2024, the report contradicts this conclusion, as I said, and shows the view loss as minor when it's, as you can see by the montages provided and Hayden's and the solicitor's reports, they're very major view losses. The other point I wanted to point out that is overdevelopment of the site. The site is a very small battle axe block. It's only 417 square metres, which is the smallest in this area. All the other blocks, as you can see by the council website, are much larger than this. There's a high building footprint and minimal green space in council. I know don't use effort.
Tony, thank you. A minute more, if you would, please.
Thank you. So it fails. Development fails to meet the required 40% landscaped area. It currently has just 3.7%, essentially just the water in the pool. The site has already reached its highest and best use, as previously acknowledged by the council's 2022 report, and the latest report ignores this fact. The other issue I'd like to bring up is that the history of this block is that it was originally number 10 Taylor Street, which was developed as a dual occupancy on the one block, and then somehow was passed, allowed to be subdivided, which I can't see any 15-metre wide frontage blocks that are subdivided with such small blocks of land, and the owner is proposing to build basically a large house on a small block of land with 3 stories and a swimming pool.
Yes, Tony, just sum up, please.
Yeah, I'll just sum up. The conclusion is severe loss of iconic views in a very sensitive area, multiple planning non-compliance and overdevelopment, and the long-term impact on our community. Regarding this precedent, I strongly urge the panel to reject this, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions of Tony? No, thank you. So I believe, Greg, you indicated your presence and wishing to address the panel. Greg Boston.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, my clients, one of the owners, Roel Heavener, is also here just to answer any questions.
I wasn't
that the
sure
panel...
if both, but yes.
Yeah, but look, I'll be predominantly speaking. Look, thanks for the opportunity to address. I'll first just speak to the recommendation. Obviously, is recommended for approval. There's a number of draft conditions of consent. We raise no objections to the conditions as drafted. Mr. Chair, I need to correct the record in relation to a couple of things that have been said this morning, and then I'll just go through the various issues that have been raised. This is not a development by a developer. This is relatively modest alterations and additions to a dwelling house, which will be used as a family home. And there's certainly no intention to completely redevelop the site or to on-sell once these works have been completed. Number 12, Taylor Road, which is the property immediately to the east, has recently obtained development consent for a substantial dwelling house. Unlike what was, or contrary to what was said by the owner at 13 Pitt Road, there are currently not unobstructed views from this particular property down towards Manly. If you have a look at the architectural plans and the survey information, you'll see that the dwelling house in front of the subject property, the ridge lines, obscure any view directly towards Manly, with the only view corridor available in a southeasterly direction. Now, that view corridor has now been minimised through what has been approved next door. So in terms of the motivation for the application, look, it's not only to provide for what we say is a relatively modest addition of floor space, which is just a master bedroom at the upper level, but also to ensure that a view sharing outcome is achieved, to and between amongst surrounding development. In relation to any suggestion that there was a previous application refused, that's just not correct. There was a previous application submitted to and considered by council, or under consideration by council. It was withdrawn. So to suggest that there's any inconsistency in terms of determination, there clearly isn't. The previous application was in breach of the height standard. The upper level additions were in breach of the 6 metre rear boundary setback control. There are also more substantive breaches in terms of wall height. The application before you now is significantly different to the previous one, in that it is now fully compliant with height. It is fully compliant with the rear boundary setback as it relates to the upper level additions. It maintains the established landscaped area calculation on the site. That is, the actual building footprint isn't being changed. The non-compliance noted in the assessment report in relation to wall height relates to the eastern facade.
Okay, just a minute or so more, please.
Yeah, the eastern facade of the development, and the wall height non-compliance is simply because of the previous excavation on the site. I do want to just spend a little bit of time, if possible, in relation to the view impact. Now, although the assessment report didn't specifically go to or copy the assessment that was prepared as part of the application, but we engaged Urbane Architecture, as you know, regularly prepares photo montages for presentation in court matters. A fully detailed view analysis is contained within the council bundle, and I'd like to think that the panel has had access to that. If I was able to share and just have another minute or so of your time, I just wanted to go through a few of those images, just to indicate that what is proposed.
If you can put them up for us very quickly, thank you.
Yeah, I've been shared out. I just need to get authority to share.
I've just given you that, Greg.
Wonderful, thank you. So this is just from the Urbane view analysis. Number 12 is the property which has just had an approval. Off to the left, the subject property is in front of you. You will see in all of these photos that there are in fact profiles erected on the roof. They were showing the previous proposal, which was withdrawn. So there was certainly sufficient visual cues on site to enable an accuracy check in relation to the Urbane montages proposed. So this is from the lower level living room with what's been approved at number 12 and what is proposed on the subject property. And you'll see here that there is a substantive view corridor maintained down the western side of the property towards Curl Beach, towards Manly, towards St Patrick's Cathedral. The land water interface isn't obliterated. It is in fact maintained for a majority of it other than the section at North Head. As I go through these images, this is further over to the east on that particular deck, which is probably the most impacted portion. But you'll see again that in terms of the view corridors, both down the eastern and western sides, and the compliant height, ensures that reasonably generous view corridors, maintaining what we say are the critical elements, including the wave zone at Curl, are maintained. And then, of course, going up to the upper level next door, which is bedrooms, there's obviously little to no impact at all from the upper levels. In relation to 15, which is the property further to the west, you'll see that their view is obstructed by vegetation at the rear of that existing site. And if that vegetation was removed, then the view obviously would be opened up significantly. But what you can see here is what is proposed doesn't remove any of those critical view elements. In fact, it's been pushed over to make sure that North Head in its entirety is maintained. So again, land water interface, North Head, if the vegetation was managed at the rear, that would open up the views to Curl and Manly beyond. And we say that in terms of an impact that we concur with council's assessment. So I certainly urge the panel members to have a good look at the very detailed and professional view analysis which has been submitted with the application, to acknowledge the fact that there have been substantive amendments made to the proposal to address concerns raised by council in the previous application, which was withdrawn, including compliance with height, including compliance with rear setback, and including opening up that generous view corridor down the western flank of the development. And to that extent, we say that what is proposed is fair and reasonable, that there has been a robust assessment against the planning principles established by Tenacity, that my client is not a developer, this is a family home, and that what is proposed is absolutely fair and reasonable. And to that extent, we ask you to endorse the staff recommendation before you today.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Or did you wish to also have your colleague address the panel?
That was the owner of the property. So,
yes.
Rob, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yes. Look, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah.
No problem. I just wanted to come on and jump on just to tell you a little bit about ourselves. My husband, Matt, who is traveling for work at the moment, so he can't be on. I mean, he's grown up on the Northern Beaches. He's never left, never moved away, always lived here. I've lived here for the last 15 plus years, all of that within Curl. Our daughter's in year 2 at Curl North Public School. We're in Nippers. We intend to stay and grow and really be a part of the community for decades to come. We really do intend for this to be a family home We're really only seeking a modest addition. As other people have mentioned, it is a 35 square metre addition. It's just a bedroom, a wardrobe and a stairwell, effectively, on top of our existing structure. As Greg has already spoken to, the approved development at number 12, when it is built, will completely remove our view of North Head altogether. The land-water interface, which it will remove every kind of view from our current living areas. And that's another reason why, we really do ask the panel to consider endorsing the council's approval on our application, as we have spent 3 years working with council, going back and forth on plans, taking on the Pit Road residents' feedback, as now especially we more than ever understand what it is like to lose part of your view. So we've worked with council for 3 years, since 2022, going back and forth on plans that went from east to west and north to south, and reduced space, compromised our own space and our own visions to be able to give the residents of Pit Road the maximum view sharing that we possibly could. We've worked really hard over the last 3 years. It has been a constant ongoing process for us. I'm sure a lot of people on this call feel the same way, that it has taken a long time. We've had some delays. There have been times when I think council accidentally notified the wrong area, so that's still, that's kind of extended the amount of time that, we were able to take on objections and submissions. It's been a very long, drawn out process. But we've been uniquely attuned to all of the council's feedback, all of the feedback that we've had from the local area. We've tried to take it all on board and deliver what we think could be the best outcome for the residents of Taylor Street and Pitt Street and ourselves.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the panel?
Yes, I've got one. One for Greg.
Yes.
Putting view loss or view impacts to the side, the thing I'm most interested in is what your understanding of the building height compliance is. So based on the drawings that are before us, before the panel, I see a development that may be not compliant with the height control. So particular reference is taking the maximum building height down and looking at the relevant RLs on the survey, and then also on drawing A08 through section 2. I would probably come to the conclusion that I don't see a compliance. I'm just wondering what your conclusion on that might be, or your impression on that.
Oh, look, the survey information. Look, council has made it clear that in terms of where ground level existing is taken from, that it's top of slab if the slab is sitting on the ground. So we've interrogated the survey, as has council, and have satisfied ourselves that the proposal is compliant with the 8.5. If the panel, it hasn't been raised by council since we've submitted these revised plans, but if the panel could identify an area that that they felt that it was non-compliant, then we'd certainly like the opportunity to respond to that. But as I said, there's been a whole lot of scrutiny over survey levels and also the building heights to ensure that it was compliant, because that was certainly our intention and certainly council's intention in its assessment and the direction to us. So we had provided these plans to council before formally submitting them, just to make sure that council was comfortable with them before we uploaded to the portal. And as I said, there seemed to be agreement that we were compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
No, thank you.
No.
So could I just ask, sorry, Ross, just a quick one for Greg. We have read in the council report that the application was withdrawn. The previous application, I mean, was withdrawn. But I gather from what the objectors have said that there must have been a report that appeared on the website and that was drawn with before that panel meeting actually occurred. Is that the case?
Yeah, correct. And look, I wasn't involved in the previous application, but I think when it was determined that there was a height breach and obviously a view impact, At that stage, the applicant decided to withdraw. So, yep.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
So if there are no further questions, thank you all for your presentations, and the panel will go into a closed session to determine this and the other items that are listed. So on that notion, unless there's any further questions or comments, I'll close this meeting at 1:24. So thank you all for your attendance and patience with us today.
Thank you so much.